Hey everybody, I'm Russell Cederberg. Some of you know who I am. I'm an author in uh, Atlantic Beach, Florida, and this is my friend Steve Seabury. He's a missionary and author in southern France. We met in Oregon about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and a couple of years ago we started communicating this way online, having weekly chats, and we just figured it out. We've had about 100 of them now. Um, so a couple of weeks ago, we were having a chat, and the chats go really well. We just share what God is telling us and what's on our heart, and it just dawned on us that this would be a good way to share a few pertinent thoughts that God has been giving us lately. Today we're going to be talking about the sleeping bride. So I'll be asking Steve a few questions about this revelation that he's gotten. So anyways, Steve, why don't you start by telling everybody a little bit about your background?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Russell. Well, it's been a real pleasure of mine to be in conversations with Russell. He's extremely right brain. I'm extremely left brain. And between the two of us, we have a whole brain. So, uh, well, my wife and I have been living outside of the USA now for approximately 19 years. And we've lived in the Republic of Turkey, the Republic of Northern Cyprus, and now we've been in France for about 4 years. And since we haven't lived in the USA for 19 years, we have a bit of a unique perspective. Not that we're anti-American by any stretch of the imagination, but we've been able to imbibe some of the cultures that we've lived in. And recently, since June, I've been in a health battle and just now getting the victory over symptoms of Parkinson's disease. And in that spiritual battle, the Lord's taken me deeper into the Word more than ever before. And He's starting to show me a few things about the condition of the bride in the USA and also in the world. So that's our background. Pretty much, we've been involved with the Turks, the Turkish Cypriots, the Armenians, the French, and now within the last year, it seems like the Lord's been turning my attention to the church in America, our brethren in America. And so I have a growing and deeper concern for what's happening with believers in the USA.
Excellent. So you've written a book and you had a vision of the bride of Christ
Yes.
um, uh, a while ago. Can you describe that? Because it's
Yeah.
pretty unique. I've never known anyone who had this sort of a story.
Well, the name of the book is Apprehended Vital Messages for the Bride of Christ. And we were locked down during the pandemic here in France for about 3 months. And one morning, I was walking down the hallway at 3 o'clock, and the Lord started speaking messages to me for the bride. Started writing them down and typing them in, and that went on for a total of 70 mornings.
70 morning.
70 mornings, 70, yes, every morning. So I'd come to my laptop and type it all out, get the scriptures, and then you helped me realize that I should actually publish a book. So it's actually a transcription of what the Lord gave me. And several of the themes of the book were the bride of Christ and the second coming.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And so getting to the meat of it, why don't you describe to everybody the revelation that you've got about the sleeping bride?
Okay. Well, I have to track back to the 1980s when we were still living in the USA, and the Lord gave me a vision. And the vision took place in Seattle on First Avenue in a place we used to call Skid Row, where all the homeless people and drug addicts and alcoholics would gather in the night hours. So I was downtown Seattle then, and I was walking down the street and I saw this figure. It was a person laying in the gutter of the street, and this person was about 14 feet tall. And they were totally slumber and sleeping and dirty and hag-ridden. It was a woman. It had dirty blonde hair and scraggly clothes. There was holes in them and very dirty and greasy and grimy and looked like she had been on a drunk for a long time. So as I was watching, she started waking up and stood to her feet, and I saw that it was a woman in totally ripped clothes and, you know, snaggletooth teeth, dirty, greasy. And as I was watching, these little black figures flew off of her, which were demons. They flew off of her, and she started changing, and the dirt went away, the grime went away, the dirty clothes went away, and she was dressed in a wedding gown, and her hair was blonde, perfectly blonde, and her face was beautiful. And the Lord showed me that it was the bride of Christ, that the bride had been sleeping in the gutter and not awake, totally drunk or in a a drunken state. And the Lord caused her to wake up, and the demons flew off of her, and she became a beautiful bride. So that image has stayed with me for years. And now I believe, I'm totally convinced that the Lord is waking up the bride, and she's coming awake and becoming aware. See, a lot of people aren't aware of who they are, and they're becoming aware that they're part of the bride of Christ. The same thing happened to me in Istanbul when I had a revelation of the bride of Christ soon after we arrived there in 2004. So another little snapshot vision is that about 3 years ago, I had a snapshot picture of an empty church building, and it was a church building like an old country church with wooden pews. And there was this man laying on the pew backwards, snoring, like really loud, and he was snoring himself into oblivion. And so that refers to the sleeping bride, snoring and not awake. So those two pictures or visions are a background to what God gave me. And so there are some scriptures that flow right into this.
Excellent. Yeah.
So we're all familiar with Matthew 25, and that's where I'll start. This is the story of the 10 virgins. And of course, it's interesting, all 10 of them are virgins. Not just half of them, but all 10. So I'll just read that. So verse 6 is, at midnight there was a shout, behold, the bridegroom go out to meet him. And all those virgins got up. And what that means is that they roused themselves out of their slumber. They awakened. It was not just getting up from bed, it was an arousing, it was an arising for them to wake up. And but they were, so the important things was that was at midnight, it was in the midnight hour. And their call went out and they woke themselves up and put their lamps in order. So that's really important today because we as believers in Jesus fit into that category of the 10 virgins. And then Romans 13:11 is another verse that is very important. I'll just read that. It pertains, all four of these verses all fit together. So I'll just read that verse also. Do you have any comments, Russell? Go ahead.
Okay. No, nothing yet.
Okay. So this is Romans 13:11. Says, besides this, you know what a critical hour it is, how it is high time now for you to wake up out of your sleep. It's high time. This is the time now. This is God's time now for the bride to wake up and to rouse herself to reality. And that wake up means to, in the Greek, it means to wake up from spiritual torpor. I don't know, we've talked about torpor. Do you want to tell them what you found out what that meant with the hummingbirds?
Let me look that up real quick.
Okay. Torpor means sluggish inactivity or an inertia, but I thought it was really interesting what you said about hummingbirds.
I don't remember what that was.
Okay, they were they go into hibernation,
Oh, right.
but it's more like suspended animation. They're like they're in suspended animation.
Hummingbirds at night, their heartbeat actually goes down to about 10 beats per minute from 200, and they do that to survive. I think a lot of Christians have been sleeping because the oppression, the religious oppression against them has been so great that they did it to survive. People have just done it to survive. And now, and a lot of people are saying this too. You're not the only guy. A lot of people all over the world are saying this, that it's the Christians are awakening, and the gulf between the awakened Christians and the secular people is getting greater and greater and greater. And it is obviously a time when, in order to stand, you have to have the anointing to stand. You have to have the energy to stand. The hummingbird immediately needs calories. They wake up and if they don't get calories immediately, if they don't get energy immediately, they'll starve to death. If they actually, if their heartbeat and their metabolism stayed the same when they fell asleep at night, by the morning they would have starved to death. So it's this sleep, this torpor that they go into is just to survive. We have been in survival mode for a long time, and we are coming out of survival mode. Obviously, you see stuff happening that's just bizarre all over the place. You see really cool things all over the world. If you're paying attention, you see it. So it's really exciting to me.
So I think that you can apply the condition of the hummingbird to the body of Christ.
Sure.
That has been asleep but is waking up, and immediately they'll need spiritual food.
Right away. Right away. Yeah.
Right away. And this, I think this is a very critical time now, is a now time. This is a time now for people to wake up. And Song of Solomon, what's that?
Wake up and eat.
Wake up and eat the spiritual food. Get the spiritual food, go to the Lord and get the spiritual food that you need right away, right now.
Yeah.
So there's another couple of verses in Song of Solomon that also fit very well in with this, and I'll just go to those. It's the same message of waking up. and it's in Song of Solomon. Let's get that. And it's Song of Solomon 2, in verse 10. My beloved speaks and says to me, rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. So there again, we have the word rise up. And what that means is arouse yourself from sleep or sickness. The word there means arise from your sleep. And then where do you go? Once you're waken, you go. And verse 14 says, so I went with them, and when we were climbing the rocky steps up the hillside, my beloved shepherd said to me, oh, my dove, while you are here in the seclusion of the clefts and the solid rock, in the sheltered and secret place of the cliff, let me see your face and hear your voice. So he's calling the bride away with him to the secret place to have communion, have closeness with him. So wake up, arouse yourself, come out of your slumber, come out of your sleep, meet with the Lord, come into a secret place and learn from him.
Right. And
That's
I think it's
yeah.
interesting that not only does it tell you to go to the higher place, and that's a higher place than the bride has been for a long time.
Yes.
It says, I want to see your face, I want to hear your voice. And that's Jesus saying that to the bride. I want to see your face. I want to hear your voice. He wants to experience us
Yes.
in a higher plane and in multiple ways. Not just the ways that he's experienced us in the past. So that's a really good.
It's a new kind of relationship.
Yes.
It's a deeper. He wants to have a deeper, more intimate relationship with the bride. And it's interesting in verses like the one in Jeremiah, where the Lord said to Jeremiah, before you were in your mother's womb, I knew you. That word means to know intimately. So he wants to have a deeper, more intimate relationship with the bride now.
Right.
Now, this now time.
Right. And it's also I'm thinking right now of songs back in the 90s. Songs we would sing in church about wanting to see the face of Jesus and wanting to hear his voice. Lots of songs that said those sorts of things. Isn't it interesting that 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, when Solomon wrote, however long ago it was, that Jesus even then was saying, yeah, but I want to see your face and I want to hear your voice. He's saying the same thing to us. It reminds me of the verse in Zephaniah about 3:17 about God singing a song of rejoicing over us. This relationship we have with Christ is a two-way relationship. It's not a one-way relationship by any means.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a whole other topic.
There's one out of Revelation 16. Let's read that. It says the same thing as the other verses. Revelation 16:15. Behold, I'm going to come like a thief. Blessed to be envied is he who stays awake. He who stays awake. Blessed is he that stays awake. And the word there actually refers to being alert. So blessed is he who stays awake. So all those verses say the same thing. Wake up, come to him, arise, rouse yourself. So it's time now for the bride to awaken and arouse herself and to come to the Lord.
Awesome. Well, we could go on and on, but we're going to save subsequent thoughts for the next video, because we're going to try to do this once a week or once every other week.
Yes.
There's lots of things to talk about right now. Most of you will get a link to this if you're watching it. You've gotten a link from either me or Steve. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to connect with us. It's been, this has been fun, Steve. So this is our first recording,
Yeah, first.
and I expect that we will do plenty more over the months to come.
Yes, we will. Thank you, Russell.